Yeah, and so there's a bunch of pricing reasons on this list too. They broke down into, okay, what are all the pricing reasons why a business will fire a firm? And so, like, a good example would be sending bills that are higher than anticipated, changes rate every time I reach out to them with questions, or no, charges me, I guess I should say. But yeah, so what do you think about that? Should a firm charge every time that a client reaches out with questions?
No.
No.
No. I mean, I don't believe that. That's not how we're structured.
No.
And
Yeah.
so I think you create too much friction for. I think it is counter to when accountants say we want to be trusted advisors,
Right.
but the toll is going to be rolling every time you
Yeah, yeah.
you pick up the phone. That that doesn't sound like you want to be a trusted advisor to me. So I think that to all of my accounting colleagues out there, you've got to get rid of the friction. If you want to build a trusted advisor relationship, you've got to get rid of that friction. Figure out a deal where you get paid what you're worth
Right.
at some point, but you don't want there to ever be you don't want a client to ever be like deciding whether they should call you or not based on economics at that moment.
Well, and
when
like
they
you
when they
can't-
need you.
Yeah, and you can't like complain about a client being disorganized if the reason for his disorganization is fear for reaching out to you to know how things should have been organized if he had, not been afraid of the rate.
Right.
Essentially. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and when I was in the public accounting world, when I was an auditor, I would always tell my clients, please call me if you have questions. If you get a grant or you want to know something, call me, because I'd much rather hear about it mid-year and try and give you some information and be able to steer you in the right direction than to come in and audit you and find out later that you did it wrong and I have to give you a finding,
Right.
or clean it up myself.
Well, the reason this happens from the accounting side, in my perspective, from the accounting firm side, is it's a little bit counterintuitive. It's because they are not actually charging enough fees to begin with. Right. So it creates this kind of nickel and dime philosophy of, well, we're charging a bare bones fee. We're trying to keep it as efficient and as low cost as we can for you, Mr. or Mrs. Client. And that's a premise that a lot of accountants operate under, is that that's what the client wants in all cases, is to be charged the least amount possible. And so they're operating under that premise, and then they're saying, well, and then they're saying, well, the way we're going to do that is by not assuming anything about what kind of service we're going to provide you ahead of time. We'll just wait and we'll do it as we go, kind of thing, right? And I think what we miss in the psychology of that is that that's not, in the abstract, any business owner is going to say, yeah, I want the best service at the lowest price. But at the end of the day, there often is more than just the dollar price on the table in terms of that client's needs. It's that service level, right? And so I think that I found that if you are able to provide them comfort that they're going to get a service level that they need, you can charge a higher amount than they might pay on average for other accountants overall, and then not charge them by the hour, and they're very happy with that result.
Yeah.
So yeah.
Value billing. I mean, it's ultimately billing based on what you're providing them at the end of the day. And so they don't mind a higher rate because they realize they're getting a higher value in that example,
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And I think charges every time I reach out with questions. So absolutely, I think that's a bad way to become a trusted advisor. I don't think it's a bad methodology altogether, though. So I think I'd qualify this. I think, again, this survey takes it from a very specific context, I think, in terms of what kind of services you might be providing. Mm-hmm. We do value-added services where it is more like and so value billing in that way makes sense, right? But I do think that if you decide that your business is going to be commodity based and you're going to go all in on, we're just going to do kind of a commodity service. There's a lot of firms that can do the same thing. Mm-hmm. Our competitive advantage is that we're going to be fast and we're going to be cheap. I think it's okay to then, because the clients, you're clear about that value proposition. The client who hires that, they know what they're getting, and so I don't think there should be any tears about the fact that they're calling when they call,
charged, right?
They get charged. But let's be real about this. When you hire that kind of advisor, you don't call.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
Because you didn't hire them to call them for advice.
You
hired them to fill out a tax return and be done with you.
To get through the bare minimum.
You want them once a year to process your data into a tax return. You don't want to talk to them the rest of the year. And if that's what you want as a client, then being charged, by every minute that they're working and no more and no less makes total sense, right?
Right.
So it depends on what they're buying, and it depends on our side what we're selling, and being honest with ourselves about what we're selling, because that's what I see a lot is a lot of firms who cannot be honest with themselves about what they're selling. They say they want to be trusted advisors. They say they're doing consulting and that they're doing stuff that can be value build, but in reality, all they're doing is commodity work. And so that's going to mess them up from a pricing standpoint. It's not going to work out. Or they're pricing in this old school way by the hour, and they actually are doing consulting and advisory work, and they're not organizing that in a way that's best for them. So I think self-awareness, using
Definitely.
that thing that Gary we talk about Gary Vee, that Gary Vee talks about. He talks about self-awareness, and I believe in a lot of that too, is that on the accountant side and the firm side, being self-aware about who you are and what you're selling is super important with regard to that question.
For sure.
Yeah, an alignment between the objective of what the customer is looking for, what type of prepare they're trying to get in that moment, versus what you're trying to bring to the market, finding somebody who lines up there.